so I want high energy.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In the last video, you seen us put the drive-by-wire throttle body that Garrett made. He fabricated all that things. We also had the intake manifold that we talked about shaving, and look, he gave it a nice haircut. It looks like you gave yourself a haircut too.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at some videos, like I look like I'm a hobo.
So he went and got a haircut. Look at all these chips too. He's like covered in stuff. The bench.
Making messes.
Making a mess. Sometimes we refer to Garrett as a Saab guy around here. He's also representing Saab. He's got a little Saab badge.
So basically, long story short, all the mess that's on the bench here is a result of just shaving this down. Obviously no performance gains here. This is all just aesthetic, but we were in here anyways. We might as well make it look the part as well. But the big takeaway is porting this now to match the Bosch throttle body that's on there now. So now it's a full 3-inch all the way through, where this was probably the equivalent of like maybe a 2.5 inch with the original shape. So should get a lot better flow out of the manifold at this point.
So we're actually gonna throw it in the booth, put a little bit of high build primer on it, sand it down completely smooth, and then paint it the same color as the body, which is exactly what I did with the other intake manifold. While he's kind of messing with some things like this, I'm gonna go ahead and start integrating that Wiring Specialties harness into the car. We did pretty much get it to just plug in, but since we have 2 fuel pumps, 2 fans, there's a couple other little things that I need to do, and hopefully get that thing started up. I'm gonna hook up the traction control so that we could actually use that drive-by-wire. Maybe we'll start it, take it for a drive today. So, to work.
So now that we have the intake manifold painted, we can kind of move on to some other things, like bringing in cars.
Mustangs on Mustangs.
Beautiful. So now we're just kind of experimenting with like placement on stuff, you know, so we're gonna kind of do an official overflow can. Right now we kind of have a makeshift option, but also the blow-off valve kind of needs a home too, and we're kind of thinking something right about there takes up that kind of void, that empty space right there. So one of the last things before we can get it fired up, obviously we got engine harness to kind of finish plugging up and doing all those things, but we need to get a blow-off valve on. The other thing is we got the sway bar. We pulled that off the shelf, and miraculous chance out of like, I don't know, 6 sway bars, we found the right one just on first shot. Get that bolted in. Trevor happened to know where like the random bracket was that was missing, like in a random tote. We'll get the sway bar bolted in, probably take this off and get the blow-off valve fabbed up and on there, crawling towards getting this thing fired up. Okay, so fortunately we've been able to do the blow-off valve and even test fit it, and fortunately we got it to fit. Now we're moving on to the intake air tamper, the charge air temp sensor. Through a hole in the charge pipe right there. We had to actually rob this off of another charge pipe here because we're in a pinch and we thought we had one and we didn't. So got a hole punched in there. I'm gonna weld that up now and move right along, and then I think the charge pipe will be done. We might try to polish it if we have the time or the stuff here to do it. Otherwise we're gonna send it. We're gonna try to get it on a track possibly very soon. So
All right, guys, so Garrett's over there. He is welding some stuff on the intercooler pipe. Actually, he's putting the blow-off valve on it. So great placement. Now we got that nice elephant tusk placement in the inside of this thing. I have a pinout from the previous Wiring Specialties harness on here, just kind of double checking some things. Trying to figure out what I did a long time ago. Actually, there's one part right here. I did make a note. 6th position for boost level, and then right here for VSS output. So that's pretty much the 2 things that I had concerns with. It did have this Bussmann fuse box, which was tied into this integration harness. This is a 2JZ harness that has a universal integration harness, which is tied into this Bussmann fuse box. So we're basically eliminating that, because with the new harness that I got, it actually has the Mark IV Supra integration harness in it. So it has this same exact plug, but what this plug goes to, instead of a random fuse box, it actually goes to the factory fuse box, the factory gauges, the factory things essentially in the harness. It's pinned out to that. So I'm trying to kind of blend in between, because with that Bussmann fuse box, it's really nice, it's tidy, it has 5 relays and fuses built into it. We have 2 radiator fans, we have 2 fuel pumps that we need to run off of fuses. So instead of putting like 4 relays underneath the dash, basically just looking at the wires right here, and all these are is like the outputs from the ECU to trigger that relay system right there. And they're literally already wired. I already have the wires run into the fuel pump. I already have the wires run into the fans. So all I need to do is give that fuse box a switched ignition, give it the 12 volt back from the battery, and then run my inputs and outputs right here from this auxiliary harness coming out of the Mark IV integration harness. Tell it, hey, here's the fuel pump output 1, here's fuel pump output 2, radiator fan 1, radiator fan 2. So simple, but now I'm just trying to do it clean.
All right, so carrying right along now, we went ahead and bolted up the sway bar, got it all done. Now we got a little bit of stability control on the front end. I think we're good under the hood for a little while. I think we're just down to electrical at this point. So next step, I'm gonna move on to putting in the pedal and getting that all at least mounted. We gotta figure out how we're gonna repin and make that work. And then it's just under dash, under hood wiring, and I think we can fire it up.
Got a delivery. We got some fresh tires. These are 3/15/30/18 Toyo R888Rs.
Those are big Johnnies.
These are probably about the biggest Johnnies, and I don't even know if they're gonna fit. So as of right now, we have two 85/35s on here, and this is a 315. Look at that. Like, that's two hands, and right here we got two hands, kind of. But these are two wide hands, and that's two skinny hands. I'm really concerned. If you look down the side of this thing, we're already kind of pushing the limit, I think. So I need to get these test fitted because we don't have very much time. I need to see if they're even gonna work, if they're gonna rub, if we're gonna have to do some special things.
Let's go mount some tires.
I'm gonna go mount some tires.
Some meat.
That is definitely some meat. I don't want to get them dirty. Please fit, please fit. That's not good.
I mean, maybe when it squats down, you might have some good luck, but.
Kind of tucked in a little bit, but.
Give it a little jounce on that corner.
Something else that I have to do as well is install this, basically it's a pedal position sensor. So it's a throttle pedal, but it essentially has like a throttle position sensor right here. So this has like a 0 to 5 volt signal. Instead of a cable physically going out into the engine bay and pulling your throttle flaps open, we essentially just run a cable to this, or just like you'd wire a throttle body or a throttle position sensor. So this is the stock 2JZ GTE VVTi throttle body, and it's the ETCSI. So this is an electronic drive-by-wire throttle. So you can see the throttle right here in the back. I twist this, it does not do anything. So it has a normal style cable, and I think that's probably because, these chassis, they were already set up, they had a cable running out there, they just used kind of everything normal, but they have a 10% safety. So you can see at the very bottom, like if your drive-by-wire, I don't even think Toyota trusted drive-by-wire back in the day, and that's why they gave you that little 10%. This is a pedal position sensor right here. So this is the exact same thing as this. So the only difference is is we actually just have the pedal position sensor on the pedal instead of out in the engine bay. It'll help tidy things up, it'll clean things up, and should be good to go. So technically we could have done the drive-by-wire with this, or you know, the traction control, all that other stuff, but I figured we might as well you know, get rid of this almost 30-year-old throttle body and put actually a new one that you could pretty much go to any parts store and buy. So
what I have in front of me are a couple of Nissan options for pedals, and it looks like, I don't know, maybe Japanese automakers use a lot of the same accessibility, a lot of the same parts, because it looks like one of these two is just going to bolt right in to the Supra here. The wiring harness that we have is set up to use a GM pedal, and we actually have one off of the C10 project, the body swap. We went and checked that out. We were planning on using that. It mounts in a different way. It mounts to the side, so we'd have to make a bracket and a whole bunch of extra time in that. So I think we're gonna go ahead and push forward on the Nissan pedals and just worry about repinning, rewiring what's here to work with the harness that we have. So I'm gonna plug away at that and see if we can get the pedal to move. Basically, where we're sitting right now, this is how the pedal will fit, you know, was in the car, whichever Nissan this came out of. This is about how we're gonna sit, and obviously we got some space to make up here. I think one of the things we can do is we'll start with like some spacers here to help a little bit, but then we'll just bend probably the arm here. Probably need to cut that off too. Okay. We can kind of do that after the fact maybe, but yeah, we'll kind of have room to make it work, I think.
what about the Toyota pedal?
The bolt pattern is wider, and because it's on standoffs, it doesn't give us really an option to...
What if we drill and do that? Like if that would be...
Let's see, that would sit. So we just took it to there.
Because this one looks closer to begin with, and it's a Toyota pedal.
It's a bit closer. We could cut off those standoffs, move the drill, and maybe still do like a spacer on there anyways. We could definitely start with that.
Is it a stud on there, or is it a bolt?
It's a bolt. We could put one bolt in.
Put one bolt in, see what it looks like, and
yeah,
go from there.
Okay.
I like it. One of the main things that Garrett was kind of messing with yesterday and the day before was cleaning up this wiring harness right here. So we have all of these things, like this thing has a demon eye, a little halo thing, the HID projectors, we got it all.
Yeah, and there was what, originally a single projector headlight. Now they're a 3 projector headlight.
Technically this is a fog light, that's the normal low beam, and then right before SEMA, we actually did this one, so we did kind of that angel eye thing.
Like a conversion kit on it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ballasts and just different control modules. Because of the rush for SEMA, everything was kind of just tied up really tight, long leads, zip tied and mounted up in there.
It was like you're rolling up an extension cord and you just zip tie it and then stick it in there, and that's pretty much where it was. So did a good job of getting all that stuff buttoned up. We also got the sway bar on.
Yes, that's one thing. So that'd be nice. Yeah, get that a little bit more stability on the track too. So everything is kind of coming together.
I guess the reason that we were able to get the sway bar done was because of this intercooler pipe. So all of that is all cleaned up, finished. Garrett actually polished that thing too.
Tried to. I could have probably put some more time in it actually be polished, you know, so there's probably a professional polisher out there going like, that's not polished.
Couple other little minor, I guess it's just little aesthetic things, like things that I wish I would have done a long time ago, which was one of the things to the radiator.
Oh yeah, so we did an overflow can that's kind of more purposeful than, what was it, an iced tea.
It was an Arizona iced tea. So you can see Garrett actually, this was a can that I had around the shop already. So an aluminum can, drilled a hole in the top, and it has this little fill thing in the bottom. So basically took some T-bolt clamps, riveted it to the radiator shroud, and then now I actually have a clean looking thing. He also cleaned up this for the fans, because I had some weird, like those connectors that they don't have.
Generic ones that they just come with. They just kind of slide a spade terminal on. And again, it's one of those things, you're in a hurry, you just got to get it working. Now we have a little bit of time to make it right, so cleaning those things up.
Yeah, but the main things that Garrett is actually doing right now is installing a set of camshafts. Stock cams, stock 2JZ GTE VVTi cams. This engine was in Japan in a taxi. So the sequential turbo system, it basically funneled all of the air to like one turbo, and then it had a bypass valve to like open to the second turbo. I only drove one of these 2J VVTIs stock for a little while in my S14, and it would hit like 7 pounds of boost like instantly, like 2,000 RPM, instant power, instant torque. 7 pounds of boost, it would drop off to like 5, and then it would go to like 10. And that's kind of because that second turbo would come online, and then you would feel it pull up top. So these engines were meant for torque, down low power, driving a taxi around Japan. They weren't meant to be in a Supra ripping around a racetrack at 800 horsepower with a big old GTX 3584 RS turbo. So that is why we're installing a set of these GSC S1 cams. These are actually the billet camshafts. Pretty nice, but compared to the stock like camshafts, they're stock camshafts definitely aren't that pretty.
They're over by the wash tank, but yeah, it's a piece of jewelry.
So if you guys are actually interested in a set of these camshafts, we have them on MotionAutoPerformance.com, where every $5 spent gets you 1 automatic entry for a chance to win the Civic, which is pretty cool because we do merchandise and we do performance parts too. And this is just one of the things that I have access to. Obviously, I don't host any of this stuff in-house. We pretty much have it all drop shipped, but that's why we could have 200,000 products directly on our website, drop shipped directly to your door. If you guys are interested in any parts for your build, this is a good example. We sell Deechworks injectors, we sell Garrett turbos, BC Racing coilovers. I mean, we got the ECU master. The Deechworks stuff is kind of a main thing. That's a big deal. The coil radiator that's in this car. I mean, tons and tons of stuff. Vibrant fittings, you know, pipe, aluminum tube, all the things. And you get entered for a chance to win a Civic. So I'm really curious. Maybe when we get the Civic done, and maybe if we install a turbo, what do you think is gonna be faster?
Oh, this better be faster.
This is gonna be faster.
To benefit on the Civic, but this has got to be. Got to put the hammer down.
Yeah. So anyhow, Garrett is going to continue working on this. I just figured that we haven't talked to you guys in a minute because everything has just been working so fast. So there's your update. We're going to see this thing run and drive probably by the end of this video. So you guys are getting a huge update.
Like it.
Yep. So got everything all hooked up over here with the intake manifold, the throttle body adapter. Garrett, that thing looks
together pretty good, huh?
It really does. Like the angle of everything, the placement, this thing, that thing, it all just came together really nice. So wiring harness is in, but I did make one mistake when I ordered this wiring specialties harness like 2 years ago. I told them that I was gonna go back to like the factory sequential ignition, which is kind of interesting, which is which is a waste spark system. So you only have 3 coil packs for a 6-cylinder engine. Right now, as you can see, we have this LS truck coil kit on there firing in full sequential, but in the harness right here, it's the same plug. The wires actually go into the harness, but since I told them that I was gonna go back to the sequential or the batch fire ignition, they tied up the harness somewhere. So I was kind of looking in there. As far as everything with the drive-by-wire, got all that stuff figured out. Garrett, right now, he is installing these brake pads. So we have some HT10 kind of like road course style pads on the front, which have a lot higher threshold for, you know, I guess they're, how would you explain that?
Higher coefficient of friction. They can put up with a lot more heat cycle, and they don't glaze over and become useless.
Yeah, so like the stock ones, these are literally the pads that Toyota installed in 1995, because these were off of that wrecked shell that had 33,000 miles on it. So those are literally the OEM pads with these brakes. So now we have these brand new things. Those are the HT10s, and then also we have some of this Castrol fluid, and we use this in the 350Z, and I think we use similar pads in the 350Z. You wouldn't think that stock brakes could feel that good, but it felt great, and they would get hot after maybe like 15 laps. Like then you would finally get a little bit of pedal like fade, but they were like stock little bitty brakes, not even the Brembos. And we're not gonna be doing that many laps out there. So this side is pretty much done. I also got some different rear tires. So you've seen previously we swapped over to the Toyo R888, but I ordered 315s, and you can see how they poke. If those things touch the quarter panel, it's gonna crack. We have a little bit of filler up in here, and they are rolled a little bit, but if we are on a road course and we had a rumble strip, we do anything, I don't want to have to repaint this car after this thing, so I ordered some 295s instead of the 315s. So the plan is just to have some traction control. So kind of a lot of things, kind of a last minute rush over here at the shop, but I got the tires out here baking in the sun. So we got the new 295s, and we'll see how those things are doing. The Civic is doing great. We're putting that thing back together. If you're not entered for a chance to win the Civic, click that link in the description. That thing is freaking sick. But it's getting assembled today, so lots of things. Last minute rush, like always, but getting her done. So wheels and tires are back. I got them fully balanced. I ran into town, got me a haircut, got me a beard trim. You know, we're going on the television, so we got to try to look a little bit cleaner. So the 295s in the back, they still poke just a smidge, but I think once it's actually on the ground, it'll kind of tuck up in there just perfect and kind of be right on the edge, but just hopefully enough tire to work. So tires are balanced. I got a haircut. We have the brakes in and bled. We actually switched to the older coil on basically the batch fire ignition right now because we couldn't find that wiring harness in there. Garrett went ahead, filled up the coolant, bled the brakes with the new stuff. So now it is time to officially see if this freaking thing runs or not. So I have not turned the key. I turned it last night. It didn't work. Actually, I have to go into the ECU and the ECU master and tell it that it's the batched ignition. Otherwise, it's gonna be really mad. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we'll key it on and see if it works. Cars right to live. Ooh, it's a little high idle, look at that. 2,500 RPM. Uh-oh, that doesn't really sound that good. I don't know if that sounds good or if that's bad. Like, it never sounded like that, but it's never had cams in it before, and it obviously has cams. You can hear this thing. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It kind of sounds good. It looks so freaking good though. All right, so got it to idle down a little bit by playing with a little bit more of the settings, but now we got to move on to the speed sensor for the front. What I did with the rear is I took the ABS sensor and I ran those wires up to the ECU master and then told it that it was a certain type of sensor. This type of sensor produces a voltage. The reason I had to use the ABS sensor technically as the speed sensor was because on the Nissan CD09 transmissions, they don't have a speed sensor on them. So up here in the front of the Supra, now we have the front speed sensor. So I needed to figure out which one was the side of the wire, the positive or the negative, which was pushing the voltage. So right here we got the old power probe, this shielded wire right here. I have this tied into sensor ground. This is alligator clamped to the power probe. And then what we'll go ahead and do is we'll just come up here and we'll just give this thing a spin, and you could hear it. So you could hear the power probe. So we got that thing spinning. That is our voltage, and yeah, that's pretty much what we do. And since it's pretty much the same sensor, I'm pretty sure it's the same teeth, I'm just gonna copy my settings that I had to figure out for that, which was like a divide by 8, multiply by this, do something else. And then we'll just have to adjust it a little bit, make them match obviously different size tires from the front to the rear. And yeah, then we'll play with that in the traction control and say, okay, if this one's does not match this one, then turn down the boost or close the throttle or do something, you know, do something to keep this thing from spinning and, you know, maybe going into like a guardrail or a tree or a train or something crazy like that. So other than that, we are getting freaking close. Kind of the next thing now is just kind of button up all of the little things. I went ahead and I put these clear corner lights in the front because these ones were kind of, I think they were cramping my style a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't worry about this thing. That is Garrett. He's working on that for somebody. Needed me to kind of look at the ECU. It's not starting, doing some other things. So if you see the RSX in the background, I didn't buy another car. It's a customer vehicle for him. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just need to pin it into the ECU, tuck all this stuff away, make it all nice and tidy, and then do some testing tomorrow. And then up to the dyno we go.